So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us from around the world. My name is Helen Crowley. I'm the GEM Secretary General, and I'll be talking you today through this webinar that we've prepared for you on public sector partnership with the GEM Foundation. I'll first give you an overview of GEM and our governing board, and then I'm going to pass over to Daniela Di Bucci, who's joining us today. She's the Vice Chair of GEM's governing board, and she'll be telling you a little bit about the perspectives of why Italy and the Civil Protection Department are a sponsor of GEM. We'll then pass over to Catalina Yepes, who is our Exposure Development Lead, but she's also been leading a large number of collaborative projects with the public sector for more than 10 years. So she'll give an overview of those projects. And then finally, we'll hear from Jamal Dabiq, who has collaborated with GEM for many years, first through his PhD, and now he is the Arab States Regional Coordinator for GEM, and he'll talk about a collaboration with Palestine. At the end, I also want to present to you a new opportunity for public sector partnership. We're opening up applications to be public governor sponsors of GEM without any financial commitment. So stick around to the end where I'll be presenting that opportunity. And if you have any questions, please do post them in the Q&A box and we'll come to them and answer them at the end. So let me introduce GEM and the Global Earthquake Model to some of you who may not be familiar with us, and more particular about how we're governed and what we believe some of the benefits are of sponsoring and being a public governor sponsor of the GEM Foundation. So GEM, Global Earthquake Model, we are a non-profit foundation. We're also a UN accredited NGO, and we're headquartered in Pavia in Italy. We're governed as a public-private partnership. And so you see there on the image on the right, the GEM governing board, which has both voting and non-voting members. And those voting members come from both public and private sectors. The governing board is supported by a number of other bodies. There's the Board of Auditors, the Advisory Board, which advises on scientific, technical, and strategic matters of the foundation. And then the main majority of the activities are undertaken by the GEM Secretariat. And I am leading that as the Secretary General. The GEM Secretariat is really the team that drives the mission of the GEM Foundation. Well, our mission is to develop global partnerships with a number of organizations around the world to provide through those partnerships standards in global earthquake hazard and risk modeling and a large resource of information of global hazard and risk around the world to support partners in their efforts worldwide to reduce seismic risk and to strengthen the local capacities of organizations to assess and mitigate the risk from natural hazards and from earthquakes. This is what GEM's governing board looks like right now. You have the voting members at the top, the non-voting members at the bottom. Non-voting members are international organizations, UN organizations, a number of sponsors that provide a financial commitment, also project partners. But if we focus instead at the top on the voting members, you see there that there is somewhat of a lack of a balance between the public and private governors. We have strong support from the private sector, especially from the international and global reinsurance and insurance sector. And this is important. Their reason for sponsoring GEM is because of the need for transparent earthquake hazard and risk models around the world. And they want those models to be developed in collaboration with the local experts and engineers and scientists around the world. This figure may give you the impression that we don't have support from the public sector. That's not true, of course. We have worked with a number of public organizations through collaborations and through in particular projects. And you'll hear about those project collaborations later from Catalina. But what's missing is that representation of the public sector on our governing board. So that's why GEM's governing board last year decided to revise the public sponsorship scheme. And so at the end of this webinar, I'll present to you that new sponsorship scheme with the objective of strengthening the public sector in the GEM's governing board. Let me tell you a little bit about the GEM Secretariat. We are based in Pavia, as I mentioned earlier, but we're a very international organization. We have around 30 employees, but we also work with PhD students and postdoctoral researchers and other collaborators. And in an exercise we did last week to find out how many different languages we speak, you see on the right there, we're speaking at least 20 different languages. And so if you contact us and English is not your main language, you can certainly contact us in any one of those languages that you see there on the screen. We wanted to present to you, from our point of view, from the GEM Secretariat, what are some of the benefits of becoming a GEM public sponsor. You'll hear soon from one of our public governor sponsors, Daniela Di Bucci, what are in their mind are the benefits. But from our point of view, we believe that a strong benefit is collaboration in scientific and technical activities, which are the 4 examples you see highlighted there. You can collaborate with us on state-of-the-art research in seismic hazard and risk modeling and earthquake engineering. We can support your country in applying that state-of-the-art research to develop seismic hazard and risk models and to undertake assessment. We can also train you on using the wide resources that we have on seismic hazard and risk all around the world, and make use of those resources for post-earthquake assessment. Let me just give you a little bit of an overview of this experience of global seismic hazard and risk assessment that we've developed for the past 16 years. Much of that comes through collaborations on seismic hazard modeling. In this slide here, you're seeing some logos, but it's really missing many of the organizations that we've worked with in projects in Central America, in South America, in Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Middle East, and with other countries. So we have worked for many years on developing collaboratively seismic hazard models. We've also been developing now for 15 years our open source software, the OpenQuake engine, which is an open source software for state-of-the-art seismic hazard and risk assessment. And in this very busy slide, what you're seeing is the publications that we've found where the OpenQuake engine has been used either by individual researchers or national geological agencies or civil protection departments to do local, national, regional seismic hazard or risk assessments. Here we've prepared a short video that just shows you really the wide range of resources that we have and which are available through our website if you are interested in understanding about the seismic hazard and risk in your country. For example, here in Morocco, you can go to the hazard page and you can download an open version of the OpenQuake engine model for that country. You can see what we have collected in terms of the exposure, the residential, industrial, and commercial buildings in the country, how we're modeling the vulnerability of the building stock for different risk metrics, economic loss, fatalities, but we also have other models now for injuries, displaced people, and other damage states. And then how we have combined all of this in a seismic risk profiles. But what we want to do is work more closely with countries to improve on this knowledge and to make sure that you have access, not just to the open knowledge, which is available through our website, but all other resources that we've collected over these years. Another example, if we show just specifically on seismic hazards, you will find on our website a single layer of PGA with 475-year return period, but we have computed with our global hazard model many different hazard maps of different return periods for rock and soil, for different spectral ordinates. And so we have all these resources available, and we want to share them and make sure that they're being used for design codes or for risk mitigation purposes. Another use of these resources, of these exposure, vulnerability, and hazard resources is in post-earthquake impact assessment. We have a platform that we can help set up for a specific country for that post-earthquake assessment, which makes use of resources such as USGS shake maps or ruptures, but it also combines that with our global knowledge of the hazard of different ground motion models in different areas of the world. If we look at other benefits of sponsoring, less on the technical side, but more looking at being a governor sponsor and sitting on our governing board, what can that bring you? Well, that brings you access to a network of global like-minded organizations, which are guiding the direction of future global seismic hazard and risk science and research. There's many training courses and meetings which governing board members can participate in, and many more. And just to give you one example of an initiative that's come out of the GEM Governing Board, because we have our GEM Governing Board meetings twice a year in June and in December. Since 2012, 3 of our Governing Board meetings, GNS in New Zealand, NIAD, Japan, and the Taiwan Earthquake Model, they've set up their own network and their own initiative, which is to have an annual Japan, New Zealand, and Taiwan seismic hazard workshop, where they're really talking about state-of-the-art in seismic hazard modeling. But let me now pass over to Daniela Di Bucci, the Vice Chair of GEM's Governing Board, to hear from her perspective why the Italian Civil Protection Department is a sponsor of GEM. Daniela.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
It's okay? Very well, Daniela.
Good, thank you very much. Yes, just to tell you a few words about how important it is for the Italian Civil Protection Department being part of the GEM Foundation. We are a public sponsor because the civil protection in Italy is part of the Prime Minister's office, so we are a governmental structure. And next one, please. Next slide. Oh, thank you. For us, there are a few points that from a public point of view are very important. The first is that GEM is a first-class public-private partnership on a global scale, and we are moving toward this kind of public-private partnerships in many fields and also at European level, not only national. My department has been funding member of GEM. We are there since 2009, and we supported with the important fundings the location of GEM office in Italy. And sitting in the governing board, we found that there is here an important area of networking. You have seen, Helen presented you the number of public and private governors, associate partners, and so on. And this is a really important area of networking for us. Next one, please. Moving toward the products, we do use many of these products. It is important to us that the global hazard map incorporates for Europe the European seismic hazard model, which is an informative annex of our Eurocode 8. So there is an alignment of products. Then, related to the global risk map, we use it as an independent comparison benchmark for national seismic risk models that are carried out by our research institution that work with us. We call them competence centers. Here you can see Lewis and the center are mentioned. And then our competence centers use the OpenQuake engine, for instance, as a platform for the national seismic risk model and as the engine for the seismic hazard model carried out by INGV. Next one, please. Of course, as a civil protection body, we interact and are part with the European Mechanism of Civil Protection, the UCPM. And the operational room, let's say, of the European Civil Protection Mechanism, that's called ERCC, interacts and collaborates with GEM through a project that's called Aristotle. So we are very keen to be part of the advisory board of Aristotle, and working with GEM, we can create a link between the two and also have an indirectly insight related to what are the products that ERCC is going to deliver just to prevent any potential critical issue at national level, because there is the need to be in agreement at the two governmental level, the European and the national. And next one, please. In some cases, there is room for a collaboration on specific activities of common interest from the national level and GEM. This is an example. Here we had the results of a project that we carried out at national level with our research institutions. And this was the input for a study that GEM developed about the possibility to create an advanced methodology for building a probabilistic seismic hazard model from a realistic 3D reconstruction of faults in a crustal layer related to an important earthquake in Italy. Next one, please. And just to conclude, we also benefit from the expertise that GEM represents. For instance, in this case, we have the so-called Major Risk Commission, that's a scientific body that provides advice to the Civil Protection Department. And since 2023, Marco Pagani is part of the seismic hazard and seismic risk sector of this commission, providing support in the hazard topics. And yeah, from my side, that's all. Over to you, Ellen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniela. We'll pass over now to Catalina Yepes, who's going to give us an overview of many of GEM's collaborative projects with public organizations. Catalina.
Thank you, Helen, and welcome everyone that is attending today or perhaps watching us. We want to share now in this section the ways that you can collaborate with GEM. Collaboration is one of our funding pillars, and we acknowledge that the collaboration strategy needs to be tailored to the partner based on the needs, the priorities, and the resources that are available. And today, we don't have time to cover every collaboration activity that we have done, in particular with the public institutions, but we hope that this quick overview gives you a good sense of the diversity, the impact, and the potential of partnering with GEM. Starting here in the slides, you can see some list of ways of collaborating. They can be scientific exchange, co-development of tools, data and model sharing, capacity building, and even go up to influencing policy and disaster risk reduction strategies. And let's start with shaping the state of art in hazard and risk modeling. We want to share some examples of how we have advanced the state of the art for the OpenQuake engine and other tools that we offer at GEM, thanks to these partnerships. And we would like to highlight that often working with other peers help us to push the tools to handle better the complexity, broader the applications, and make them more applicable for the real needs of the practitioners. Here is an example of the result. This is the hazard map, latest hazard map for New Zealand, developed by New Zealand scientists. And here GEM was collaborating through participating in the review panel and improving also the OpenQuake capabilities to handle more advanced techniques for modeling fault systems. So at GEM, we support our partners also by implementing new features. Other example is how we work with the United States Geological Survey. Here you can see a shake map that shows the intensity. And on the background, the shake map uses the OpenQuake libraries for ground motion models, the equations that let us estimate that intensity of the ground shaking. And the USGS also provides to community in the short time after an event occurs with impact estimates. And right now, we are working closely with the PAGER team, that is the one that works with this rapid impact estimation tool, to integrate GEM exposure and vulnerability models into the calculation, so we can also strengthen the global interoperability and also data consistency for all users. Now let's also check at some other applications for different countries that have been lately updating or developing the seismic hazard and risk models. There are many ways in which we have collaborated with these countries. In some cases, as we say, New Zealand, or perhaps Taiwan, Australia, Switzerland, we have this exchange, scientific exchange, perhaps review of some features, adding features in OpenQuake, and having scientific discussions. In other countries, we co-develop and implement the models. For instance, in Albania, there was also a big component for capacity transfer and knowledge building, and same in the Philippines. In other cases, we develop these models thanks to projects that are happening in the countries, like the case for the Dominican Republic, that we work with the National Geological Survey to develop the Dominican Republic seismic hazard model. But now we would like to give you some specific examples of what the collaboration could provide or could generate in different countries. So we will start for the case of Colombia, and we have asked our partners also to give us some brief overview from their perspective.
Hola, soy Mónica Arcila del Servicio Geológico Colombiano. Como líder del Grupo de Amenaza y Riesgo Sísmico, quiero compartir 3 aspectos destacados de nuestra colaboración con la Fundación GEM, como participante público y como socios de proyecto. Iniciamos hace más de 11 años con el proyecto SARA, luego cooperamos para el desarrollo del modelo de amenaza sísmica de Colombia y recientemente han sido nuestros asesores para el modelo nacional de riesgo sísmico. 1. Las colaboraciones con GEM siempre se han enmarcado en solucionar necesidades específicas del Servicio Geológico Colombiano y han contribuido a mejorar los productos y servicios que ofrecemos al país. Estas colaboraciones fácilmente se convierten en espacios de discusión técnica, de transferencia de conocimientos y de aprendizaje que nos ayudan a identificar nuevas tendencias en las evaluaciones de amenaza y el riesgo sísmico y oportunidades de avanzar para el servicio geológico. Segundo, somos usuarios de la calculadora de amenaza y riesgo en OpenQuake y hemos usado los kits de herramientas para modeladores de amenaza y riesgo. El kit de amenaza lo usamos para el desarrollo de diferentes componentes del modelo de amenaza publicado en 2018. Y para evaluaciones de riesgo han sido muy útiles los modelos de fragilidad que nos sirven de comparación para los modelos desarrollados localmente. Y el modelo de consecuencias que usamos para nuestras estimaciones de afectación a la población. Por último, vemos que la Secretaría de GEM busca crear y mantener lazos estrechos con sus socios, que reconoce y destaca las capacidades locales y se interesa por involucrarlos en sus proyectos regionales. Gracias a esto, hemos tenido la oportunidad de participar en los proyectos CREB y TREC y recientemente los avances de nuestro modelo de riesgo fueron presentados en la conferencia de 2023. Con esto esperamos seguir colaborando.
And in addition to the video from Colombia, we wanted also to share an example of the results. So here is the web application, the hazard viewer, that we co-developed with the Geological Survey. As you can see, it has similar technology as what Helen was showing before. And here users can access information for every municipality in the country. They have access to hazard curves. They can download it, they can check it. They have also information for the response spectrum at different periods. And the idea was that they wanted to keep the information, to put the information available for practitioners to download the data, download the model, and use it in the country. So this is an example of how GEM can implement the tools in collaboration with the country. Another example is Canada.
Hello, I'm Tegan Hobbs, a research scientist at the Geological Survey of Canada. I appreciate the opportunity today to speak about the incredibly beneficial partnership between the Global Earthquake Model Foundation and Natural Resources Canada. Since 2017, when Canada became a public partner member of GEM, they've become an integral part of our national seismic hazard and risk assessment programs. Speaking on behalf of the RISK program, GEM has collaborated extensively with our small team of scientists to ensure our seismic risk model runs efficiently, makes use of state-of-the-art methodologies, and meets the needs of our end users while working within our computational constraints. They have also advised on or led multiple projects to improve our consequence modeling, update our fragility and vulnerability functions, create a new geodetic block model for seismic hazard in Western Canada, and allow us to reverse engineer scenarios by disaggregating our probabilistic risk. In co-creating riskprofiler.ca, a custom web application to share seismic hazard and risk information with community planners and emergency managers, GEM has helped us to ensure our work translates more easily for non-technical decision makers. Specifically, we have made use of many of the OpenQuake engine tools, like the stochastic damage and risk calculators and the scenario damage and risk calculators. We also have multiple scripts that access the underlying HDF5 datasets, allowing us to complete advanced analyses that meet the needs of our more nuanced assessments. Most importantly, we've greatly appreciated the access to GEM staff for consultation and troubleshooting during the planning, development, and implementation phases of our projects. This close collaboration has allowed Canada to assess and communicate seismic risk data in a far more robust and comprehensive way than we could on our own, helping us to deliver on our mandate to keep Canadians safer. Thanks, GEM, and we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future.
And here you can see the risk profiler that Tegan mentioned, in which users can access probabilistic hazard, risk, and scenarios. You can go and check, for example, in Vancouver, what is the annual probability of having casualties in a given region, explore values, and you can do it at every region. You can download results. The model is also openly available, and there are results for many types of impact metrics, for damage, for economic losses, and so on. And they also have the option to visualize earthquake scenarios. Now, let's move to El Salvador.
Hola, soy Jacqueline Rivera, directora del Observatorio de Amenazas del Ministerio de Medio Ambiente y Recursos Naturales de El Salvador. Para nosotros, la colaboración con GEM ha sido clave para fortalecer nuestras capacidades técnicas e institucionales en la evaluación del riesgo sísmico. Gracias al proyecto FORCE, junto a GEM, hemos impulsado un trabajo conjunto que nos permitió integrar nuevos modelos, herramientas y conocimientos. Uno de los logros más importantes ha sido el desarrollo de una plataforma interactiva que permite estimar rápidamente pérdidas económicas, daños y zonas críticas después de un sismo. Esta herramienta será clave para orientar la respuesta del Estado y salvar vidas.
Desde el enfoque técnico, GEM nos apoyó con herramientas avanzadas como OpenQuake, que utilizamos para modelar amenazas y riesgos sísmicos, considerando fuentes sísmicas complejas, amplificación local y diferentes formas de estimar el movimiento fuerte del terreno. También trabajamos juntos en el desarrollo de un modelo nacional de exposición y en el uso de curvas de vulnerabilidad ajustadas a nuestras certificaciones. Además, realizamos análisis piloto de respuesta de sitio en zonas urbanas y exploramos escenarios futuros de riesgo sísmico usando trayectorias socioeconómicas. Estos avances nos permitirán aportar información actualizada para la revisión del código de construcción y promover una gestión sísmica más proactiva.
Agradecemos profundamente el apoyo de GEM. Esta colaboración ha sido una oportunidad estratégica para El Salvador y estamos comprometidos a seguir avanzando en conjunto para reducir el riesgo sísmico en nuestro país.
In the case of El Salvador, the collaboration was thanks to a project that we were working with them, and the focus was on bridging the communication between the different stakeholders in the country. The platform that they mentioned in the video about interactively seeing the results of the impact estimates after an earthquake is now the platform that the internal seismic commission uses when there is an event. Here is a brief overview of how that platform looks like. You can access through phones or through browsers. And on the left panel, you will see a list of earthquakes. These are historical earthquakes, but also they are connected to tools for ShakeMap and tools in OpenQuake to produce, in the aftermath of an earthquake, risk estimates. So you can explore the ground shaking, the intensity, different intensity levels. You can also check the impact in terms of number of damaged buildings, collapsed buildings, and the impact metrics in terms of human losses, economic losses, and so on. This platform is right now for internal use, but we are also working with El Salvador on how to improve the communication of such results to the general public. Another example is the case of Bangladesh. This was a UNDRR project requested by the Ministry of Disaster Management and Relief of the country. And in this case, GEM Group was implementing and developing the risk assessment at UPA-ZILA level, which is the subnational level for the country. Here, the results are static, but as you can see, are easy to communicate. And one good input to include is that they have been used for data-driven policy recommendations, such as strengthening public awareness, integrating risk information into planning departments, prioritizing retrofitting of critical infrastructure, or strengthening preparedness and response strategies. And if we also move not only at national level, but at urban level, This is the example of Cali in Colombia and Quito in Ecuador, in which, thanks to a collaboration, a project, the TREC project that we were doing in these cities, we managed to develop detailed urban risk assessment. And right now, the results are used in Cali, where you can see here the video. The office and the municipal office is already presenting those results, which are already incorporated in the disaster risk reduction plan. And this, we believe, is a good example of how risk information can be made accessible and well communicated, and it drives real action. Then let's move from national examples to something broader. And here is how we can customize the Open OQ impact tool Helen mentioned before to provide tailored risk estimates. Here with the Whirlpool program, we are working in a project to improve the estimates that they are calculating in the short aftermath of the event. In the slides, you can see the Adam platform. Right now, the platform presents information based on the magnitude, the number of people that have felt the earthquake or they are in the surroundings of the earthquake. But now we are working to indicate specific impact metrics such as injuries or people rendered homeless that will improve the capacity of WFP to respond to emergency more effectively with a better outcome. Here is the example of how we are already shaping ideas on how that Adam Plus will look like. And similarly, we are working with DG ECHO and EERC. Here is an example of the document they shared the same day that the Myanmar earthquake occurred. And you can see in the top left panel, they are using directly the output of the OQ impact tool to communicate the potential destroyed buildings in the region. They are also using the hazard map in the background to understand the potential seismicity and the active faults for the country. Finally, last but not least, through workshops, technical exchange, training events, we aim to improve the understanding of seismic hazard and risk at the global scale and how you can use our tools to do it. It's important also to mention that we do these trainings all over the world. And for us, it's also a privilege to engage with so many leading scientists and experts across the globe. Not only that help us to improve our tools, to advance the science, but also it helps GEM scientific group to continue learning, exchanging ideas, and improving our technical capabilities. So with this, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Jamal Dabig, who led the collaboration for Palestine. And now Jamal is the Arab State Regional Coordinator. So please, Jamal.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Catalina. My name is Jamal. So beside my current role in GEM, I am also the coordinator of Earth Sciences and Seismic Engineering Unit at Al-Najah National University in Palestine. Our collaboration with GEM started as part of a national project funded by the World Bank. This project aimed to enhance disaster resilience in local governance through knowledge, information, guidelines, and capacity development. The collaboration with GEM was very important for conducting the National Multi-Hazard Risk Assessment, starting from unified data standards necessary to collect exposure information about schools, hospitals, such as JET4all taxonomy system for exposure classification. The collaboration facilitated also access to global fragility, vulnerability, and hazard models, and other exposure datasets. To develop tools developed by GEM as the OpenQuake engine was used to assess seismic hazard and risk, in addition to the secondary hazards induced by shaking like liquefaction and landslides. GEM also developed a custom web-based interactive platform for sharing hazard and risk information with different stakeholders. Here is a quick demonstration. Users can access the platform by going to this URL link. The platform is divided into 4 sections: hazard maps, which contain multi-hazard maps, exposure maps for aggregated building information, and building by building information for critical infrastructure and other roads infrastructure, social vulnerability maps, and several risk maps, including climate change susceptibility, earthquakes, and landslides. To access these maps, you need to log in using your credentials and then go to one of these sections. For example, here are some of the hazard maps included: flood hazard map, seismic ground shaking, landslide susceptibility, which can be calculated with OpenQuake, climate change susceptibility, and liquefaction susceptibility, which can also be calculated with OpenQuake. Users can edit or view. If we click on view, this will take you to a GeoViewer. In this GeoViewer, on the top right section, you have general information about this map. For example, this map shows the peak ground acceleration calculated at surface for a return period of 470 years using OpenQuake engine. Users could also navigate other sections to understand how they can use this data and what are the limitations. In order to read any data from the map, you can simply just zoom in and use the legend to extract the value. Or if you don't know the location, you can use the top search box to write the name of the city to geolocate the location of interest. By clicking on the location, you can read, for example, here the BGA value. This information can be downloaded as a CSV file, depending on the information available in this map. To improve the visual aspect of the map, you can also add other additional layers, such as the administrative boundaries or any desired layer. It is also possible to change the background map, which is called the base map. To improve interpretation, users can also adapt some of the aspects, such as the opacity of the map, and many, many more other features. To download the data, you can either download the QGIS project, or you can pull this information using the WMS service. You can take this link, go to QGIS software, which is an open source software, paste the link, and get the data. This is necessary for some users which want to do more advanced analysis on this data. And finally, speaking on behalf of the academic institution, the collaboration with GEM allowed us to address gaps in existing knowledge and data needed to inform decision-making. We look forward in the future to continue this collaboration through this new opportunity that will be presented by my colleagues. Thank you, and back to you, Helen.
Thank you so much, Jamal, and thank you to all my speakers today for presenting really the very many collaborations we've had over these years with public organizations. And as I mentioned at the beginning, whilst we have had many collaborations with public sector over the years, what we're missing right now is a representation of that public sector on our governing board. And so that's why the GEM governing board decided to revise the public sponsorship scheme. And so I'm going to present to you this new revised sponsorship scheme, as well as this new opportunity that we've opened up to have an application to be on GEM's governing board without any financial commitment. So from January 2025, we now have 3 tiers of public sponsorship, 3 ways of entering as a public governor sponsor in GEM. They have different levels of engagement and resources. So in the top tier, the Governor Plus, which has the highest commitment and annual contribution required, you can assign up to 50% of that annual contribution to a collaborative project with the GEM Foundation, subject to governing board approval, but it could be one of the many activities that you've seen presented today. An additional benefit at this level is that the governing board member could sit on a working group, a sort of a steering group, an annual steering group, which discusses the activities of the GEM Foundation in more detail and prepares the work plan for the next year. Though I should note that the work plan, it always is an ultimate decision and needs to be approved by the governing board itself. The middle level is a standard governor level. So we now have for any organization, any public organization anywhere in the world, a standard fixed annual minimal contribution, which needs to be paid. And all of these levels all have the same rights, the same voting rights. They all sit together on the same governing board, attend all of the same meetings and events, and have all of the same benefits that I presented earlier. What we wanted to really focus on today was this new category at the bottom there of entering as a governor sponsor to GEM, but without having to provide any financial contribution. We think this will open up public governor sponsorship to many countries, especially those in the global south, where the financial commitment can be somewhat of a hurdle to joining and participating in the GEM Foundation. So how do you enter, how would you apply to this partnership opportunity? We have opened now on our website. There is a call for applications on the website for public sector partners to apply to be a GEM governor sponsor. We will be selecting those public sector partners following this open application. What you will receive is the status of public governor for a period of 3 years. We have a deadline for this open application, which is the 24th of May, 2025, so at the end of next month. And once we've received the applications, we will then be evaluating them. A selection panel made up of members of GEM Secretariat and GEM's governing board will be evaluating them with the criteria that you see outlined on the slide here. So we're evaluating based on merit, on strategic alignment, alignment with GEM's mission, contributions that public organisation makes to seismic hazard and risk assessment and reduction within that country. You can see there in the documentation that's available on our website, this table is described in more detail, but you can see for each criteria we have a number of points. We're looking into the opportunities for a collaboration between that application organisation and GEM. How does the activities of that organisation align with the activities of GEM and with the strategic direction of GEM? What is the responsibilities of the organisation in terms of national hazard and risk assessment? What types of in-kind contributions have been proposed? These might be training within the region, within the country. It could be access to the network of academics and engineers. It could be access to specific data sets or models. Many different types of in-kind contributions can be proposed. We are also looking at, does the organisation already have experience with GEM models, or at least with GEM's probabilistic seismic hazard and risk framework? And has the organisation ever attended any past events? We're interested to understand if the organisation can cover the expenses to attend governing board meetings. As I mentioned, we have 2 governing board meetings a year. They are hybrid events, but we think it would also be important that this organisation can at least attend one of those meetings in person a year. And we'll also be looking at the country classification by income level using the World Bank's classification, where countries with lower income levels will have higher points assigned to their application. And so based on the total points that we will be calculating for each application, those with a minimum of 55 and above will be considered by the governing board. They'll be shortlisted and ranked, and the governing board in the meeting in June will be identifying a further shortlist of organisations with which interviews will take place over the summer, with the objective that by September, we will have identified up to 3 organisations which could become public governor sponsors from December. So we will invite those winning applications to join us in the December governing board meeting, where the governing board will be asked to approve them as new governing board members. If you are interested, you can come to our website and go to the Get Involved sponsorship page. You can click on the partnership opportunity application link there. You see the important dates on the web page, and you can download the instructions. The instructions will describe exactly the process for reviewing the applications, and then you can also download the template just by filling in your information. This is almost an expression of interest, so we know that your organisation is interested in this opportunity. You can download the template. The template just leads you through a number of questions related to the criteria that I presented before. If you have any questions, please do send an email to info@globalquakemodel.org, and we will be happy to answer them. And we will also be putting frequently asked questions onto our website as they come in. And we will also be keeping that web page up to date if there's any delay, if we decide to extend at all the deadline, or if there's any other important information that needs to be shared. Now, at this point, I would ask if there's any questions from attendees on the application process or on anything that we've presented today. Maybe I'll ask my colleagues, also Catalina, to help me see if there have been any questions in the Q&A box. If not, I did prepare a few what I thought would be frequently asked questions, and that given that we still have time, I think I'll just run through those. There's no questions. So we have been asked, what if there's more than one organization within a country? Catalina's making a signal. There's a question.
Yes. The question says, Dear Helen, thank you for your presentation. My question is, if I can submit my application or should buy Team Such Laboratory? From Mohammed El Hilal.
I didn't quite get the last part of the question, but I think that the question is whether it's an individual or an organization. We want the application to come from an organization, not from individuals, obviously, but they will be submitted by an individual on behalf of the organization. We can clarify this, I think, on the instructions on the website, that we would need to be sure that this application is coming from the organization with perhaps a signed letter from the organization. Were there any other questions? Yeah.
Do you directly collaborate with public sector or through NGOs? Asked Wilfried.
So I'm not sure if the question is specifically about this open call for public governor sponsors. If the NGO has public funding, it's a public organization, it fits within this sector, this call for applications. In terms of collaborations with NGOs, let me pass to Catalina, who can maybe mention some examples.
Yes, I think we can also collaborate with NGOs. It depends on the type of collaboration. There are also institutions such as the World Food Programme or other institutions that are taking part of needs from the results for earthquake impact. So that could be a possibility. When you submit your application, make sure that you try to explain how will be the role, and I think it will be good for consideration.
As I presented, I think at the very beginning, we have a number of associate partners, we have a number of UN organizations. So that's also another way that you can sort of enter into GEM's governing board without being an official GEM member, not having voting rights, as I said at the beginning, but we do partner with a number of organizations, especially those, however, that have more of an international or global scope.
Good. Mohsen Ashanti says, congratulations, I'm happy to see this new initiative. He also has the hand raised. I don't know if you would like to also type your question, but at the same time, we are seeing other questions in the Q&A panel. This time from Mohammed El Hilal, who asked before, he says, can we invite GEM to our university in Morocco?
Very, very pleased to come to your university. We are hoping to have a project with Morocco, indeed, one of the future collaborations, and we do hope that Morocco will become a public sponsor of GEM through organizations there. So we are hoping, and if that doesn't happen, then we hope that some organizations will apply through this open call. But we do expect to be spending time in Morocco in the future, and we'll be very happy to come to your university. We do hope to do training courses in the country, also on the use of our models and tools. And just to say hello to, I think that was Mohsen Ashtiani. Hi, Mohsen. Good to have you here. And if you do have any questions, just type them in the Q&A, or you can also email us afterwards. So if there aren't any questions, more questions at this time, let me just run through these frequently asked questions that I thought could come up. So what if there is more than one organization in a country? So we could get more than one organization, and we do encourage more than one organizations. But we would hope that if within a given country we were getting multiple organizations, that they could perhaps work together as a consortium. So we'll see what applications come in, and we may encourage that those organizations work together as a single consortium so that we have a single representative on the GEM governing board for that country. But it's not a rule. We can have more than one organization from a given country on the governing board. Is it necessary for you to have worked with GEM or have experience with GEM models and tools? No, of course it's not at all necessary, and we do want through this collaboration to train and support you on the use of GEM's models and tools. But we think it's important that you do have a knowledge of how we model probabilistic seismic hazard and risk assessment, that you do understand the methodologies and the standards that we're promoting. The types of in-kind contributions that can be considered. Here I just have some examples, but there's many types of in-kind contribution. As long as they are in line with the mission of GEM, they could be coordinating a project within the country that we could connect with. It could be organization of workshops, training, or open sharing of data and models from the country. And then I already sort of mentioned this, how the review and selection of the winning applications is. It's well documented in the instructions on the website, but as I said before, we'll have a selection committee. They will score the applications based on the evaluation criteria that I presented before. A total score will be given to each application. The applications will be ranked. The governing board will review those ranked applications as long as they are above the minimum score of 55. At its June governing board meeting this year, we'll select a short list of applications of applicants, which will then be interviewed. And we expect up to 3 winning applicants to be selected and communicated by the end of September. And then those winning applicants will be invited to come to GEM's governing board meeting in December, where we will ask the governing board to approve them as public governor sponsors from 2026 onwards. So I'm going to stop sharing there, and if there are no further questions on the Q&A, I would just like to thank again all of my speakers who joined me today in this webinar. We have been recording and live streaming this webinar, so you can go back and watch it. It will be on our YouTube channel. If you have registered, you will receive a link. You'll receive all the links to access the presentation afterwards. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.